safe. Now, let's turn to a story away from coronavirus, because the government has announced a new £30 million fund to pay for fire alarms to be fitted in high-rise buildings in England which have dangerous cladding. The move is intended to reduce the costs which are currently being faced by leaseholders who are having to pay for round-the-clock fire patrols. Now, they have been introduced at a large number of high-rise blocks up and down the country, all in the wake of the Grenfell Tower disaster, of course. But that was 3.5 years ago, and the costs are still being felt by a huge number of people up and down the country. So let's get reaction to the announcement of that fund. Dr. Nigel Glen is from the Association of Residential Managing Agents, which represents property management companies which manage the best part of 1.5 million leaseholders. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, Jane. How are you?
Is this a substantial sum of money? Will this really help, do you think?
Well, 30 million is a substantial sum of money. It will always help. But we have to remember what we're facing here is a multi-billion pound problem in respect to the cladding. And that's not even starting to look at the additional costs which you've mentioned, such as waking watch or other building defects like compartmentation and so forth. So there's a long, long way to go yet.
I mean, do you actually know a figure that would be needed?
It's probably in the tens of billions. I mean, everybody's trying to work that out at the moment. I know a data set from my own members. So to remediate a cladding building is around about 2.2 million, and we have hundreds of those. So it's very hard to see how 1 billion, for example, will stretch the whole way. I think everybody accepts it won't. But the waking watch costs, which we're talking about here, they're outside of that, and they are crippling for leaseholders.
I mean, it is a huge sum of money every month, isn't it, for anyone who's caught in this situation through no fault of their own. So, I mean, for people watching this on the outside who aren't affected, it would seem logical to say, right, any company that has built one of these blocks and there's now question marks about the cladding, surely it is the people who built the block who should be paying to have it removed and have something safer put in its place. I mean, that would seem, on the face of it, the most simplistic answer, but maybe that is simplistic. To explain to people who don't know much about this, what would you say really needs to be done?
It is a bit of a simplistic answer. It's a very complex, I hate it being complex, but it is. The only way we can see forward is the main thing has to be to get people safe. So let's get people safe first, and that requires government to forward fund. I know it's going to be a huge amount of money, but then the government can then decide who should pay, who is at fault afterwards. Because the problem is, 3 years after Grenfell, we're still arguing about where's the money going to come from. And all that time, people are living in unsafe blocks, which is terrible for them financially, mentally, and so forth.
And when it is put to government that they should be paying for this cladding to be removed so that everybody is safe, whether they're owners or whether they rent, and then the government can go and recoup the cost subsequently, what is the response to that?
They are looking at it very, very carefully. The government has recognised the size of the problem, the social economic impact it's having on just not the people in the cladding buildings. If you think about it, almost the entire sales process has ground to a halt because of this, because lenders won't give mortgages, et cetera, et cetera. So government is putting a huge amount of time in. The problem is there is no quick and easy answer.
And the human, I mean, you're talking about safety, of course, but there's a human mental health cost to this. I mean, there are people who are stuck in flats that they've bought in good faith. They need to sell. Maybe they need to move because of their job, or they need more space because they want to have a child, and they literally can't sell. And they are stuck through no fault of their own, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. It's heartbreaking. I mean, I've been in so many meetings where people have broken down into tears, and you can absolutely understand why. I mean, it's a terrible situation. And as you say, they're still there years and years later, and then there seems to be no way out for them. So the stress they're under is just remarkable. It's terrible.
And so what? They just have to keep waiting? Because, as you say, it is 3.5 years since the Grenfell fire.
I'm afraid that's it at the moment. I mean, I'm not going to get any extra Christmas cards for saying that, but that's why we're saying what it needs is a really significant push. And that The only way we can see that going ahead is the government funding. And as I say, I'm a taxpayer. Do I want to pay for it? I don't see why I should. I can understand the government might have some culpability if you're looking at what might have happened in the past about changing regulations. But let's get these people safe, and then the government can figure out whether it should be developers, whether they should put a tax on new sales, other ways to recover it. But we're pretty clear, as far as we're concerned, as long as the leaseholders don't have to pay because they're innocent people in this, let's just get the work done, because it has to be the safety and the mental well-being that comes first.
So much more we could discuss, but perhaps we will again. Thank you very much for now. That's Nigel Glen from the Association of Residential Managing Agents. Thank you very much.